Just one night, one call, one drink, and then he lost everything. The company he built with his own hands step by step to the top of the market was suddenly taken away by the one he trusted most, his so-called best friend, his co-founder. But what no one expected was that same night marked the beginning of his comeback. No anger, no complaints, only silence and a plan sharpened like a blade. This wasn't a loud revenge, it was a mastermind's counterattack, where the one who was stabbed in the back didn't fight to take it back. He built something even bigger, and then claimed everything the betrayer once stole. What you built with your own hands, even if stolen, can be rebuilt. And this time, no one will ever take it from you again. Ethan, 32, was the founder of a startup specializing in AI-driven user behavior analytics. He started from nothing. A tiny studio apartment, an old laptop, and one big idea that kept him going even when quitting seemed like the only option. Beside him was Jason, his best friend since college. They stood shoulder to shoulder through months without pay, countless all-nighters debugging code, and brutal rejections from investors. To Ethan, Jason wasn't just a business partner. He was family. After 5 years, their company finally began to thrive. The startup turned profitable and was repeatedly listed among the fastest-growing AI platforms in North America. Big tech began to take notice. The door to the global market was opening. And in that moment, Ethan truly believed. He wouldn't reach the top alone, but with the very person who had stood beside him through the storm. Later, when everything came to light, someone asked Ethan, "Did you never suspect anything?" He just smiled, not a bitter smile at anyone else, but a quiet one for himself, because the signs, they had been there all along. There were times he noticed Jason approving project proposals without him, deals that should have crossed his desk, an advertising contract with an unusually high price, a memorandum of understanding with a foreign partner he'd never even heard of. When he asked about it, Jason just brushed it off with a laugh. "Just minor deals, quicker this way. I'll fill you in later, man." Ethan didn't push. He chose silence, partly because he was busy, partly because he trusted, and partly because, deep down, he feared that doubting Jason might break whatever brotherhood they had left. What he didn't realize was every time he stayed silent, Jason stepped 1 inch further, little by little, one quick signature at a time, one backdoor handed over for smoother operations. All quietly opened, preparing for that one night that would change everything. Ethan didn't realize that the small bites, seemingly harmless, were slowly carving deep cracks beneath the surface of a system he once believed was unshakable. Everything looked fine. The company was growing, the reports were solid, but something felt off, something he couldn't quite name. He once thought maybe it's just the workload, that if he kept things under control, didn't stir the waters internally, then it would all be okay. But the truth is, some things aren't okay, they just haven't exploded yet. One day, while reviewing the internal communication system, Ethan noticed that the title COO had been assigned to Jason. There was no record of that decision in any meeting minutes, no official documentation. No one had told him. He called to ask. Jason picked up, speaking in that same old voice, casual, half-joking, half-deflecting. "Oh, that I just added it to help with system permissions. Honestly, I've kind of been doing the COO role this whole time, right? It's just formalizing it." The reply was light, almost nothing, but hidden in it was something dangerous. Jason had begun redefining his role without the founder's consent, and Ethan began to notice more. At operations meetings, Jason would arrive early. He'd sit in Ethan's seat center stage across from the operations board. He'd open the meeting, lead the agenda, summarize, make decisions. When Ethan showed up, Jason would smile and say almost apologetically, "You've been swamped. I'm just stepping in to keep things smooth." It sounded reasonable. Too reasonable. So reasonable. It made you miss the fact that your role was being quietly replaced. At first, Ethan found it odd. Then he got used to it. And that familiarity, that was what he would regret most. Because Jason never screamed, "I will betray you." He just took one small step at a time, one quick decision, one silent assumption of authority. And Ethan, busy, trusting, unwilling to assume the worst, allowed someone else to redraw his role in the very company he had built. When someone gets stabbed in the back, it's usually because they turned away for too long. And by the time they look back, every blade is already sharpened. That night, Ethan was in the thick of one of the most stressful quarters of the year. A strategic negotiation with a South Korean partner had just reached a critical stage. KPIs had dipped slightly, and rumors of dissolving the secondary R&D team for restructuring were starting to spread internally. Most people would have seen it as just a rough patch, but not Jason. He saw it as an opportunity. He texted Ethan, "Boss, some of the old team are nearby. They've been asking about you. Just one drink, then we're out." Ethan declined, said he was tired, had a headache. Jason smiled. That was exactly what he'd expected. By the afternoon, he had already laid out the entire script. The first person would fail to convince Ethan. The second would call, also fail. But the third, Ethan would agree. Partly out of politeness, partly just to get it over with. The bar was inside a high-end hotel, private room, no cameras facing the table. The seats were ready, the drinks chosen. The person Jason brought wasn't an old friend, just a familiar harmless face, enough to keep Ethan's guard down. Ethan arrived worn out from the day. Jason greeted him with a loud laugh and a pat on the back. The others already left, just the closest ones now. No business tonight, just brothers. Ethan sat, didn't ask much, one drink, then another, then a third. Jason watched silently. When Ethan's forehead started to sweat, his gaze went unfocused and he held the glass with both hands. Jason knew it was time. Another drink was poured. Jason placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder at just the right moment, just the right pressure. "Hey boss, can you sign this real quick?" "It's that Korea partnership deal we discussed a few times." Ethan stared at him for a few seconds, eyes hazy, then nodded. Jason opened his bag and pulled out a contract printed 3 months ago. He'd carried it every day, just waiting for this moment. Nothing looked new, no schemes, just one quiet clause near the end. All executive control and operational shares shall be transferred to Jason in the event of company restructuring. Ethan signed, page by page, no witnesses, no one knew. Afterward, Jason helped him up, walked him out to the car already booked. The driver was Jason's man. The apartment was one Jason had rented in advance. Before the car door closed, Jason whispered, "Take him to this address. Send me the door code on Zalo." The next morning, Ethan woke in a strange apartment. No phone, no wallet, no notebook, only a splitting headache. And an eerie emptiness like he had just lost something but couldn't remember what. That afternoon, an email arrived from legal. "Dear Mr. Ethan, based on the signed document and accompanying video verification from last night, all executive rights and operational shares have been officially transferred to Mr. Jason." No arguments, no noise. Jason knew Ethan was smart enough to understand. This wasn't a trick. This was a plan, and it had started a long, long time ago. Ethan woke up in an unfamiliar room. The morning light crept through the thin curtains, making his already aching eyes throb even harder. His head felt like it had been split open heavy, scrambled like someone had stolen his memories, shredded them, and threw them back in a pile. He didn't remember getting there, didn't know who had helped him home. Only a void, silent, vague, but dangerous. Then the phone rang, shrill, cold, hollow. He hesitated for a few seconds, then picked up. The voice on the other end was from legal, clear, quick, emotionless. "Mr. Ethan, I'm sorry to call this early, but the executive transfer documents were confirmed last night. The video record has been archived. At this moment, Jason is listed as the legal representative of the company." Ethan didn't react right away. Only one word slipped from his lips, hazy, fragmented like from a man who no longer recognized himself. "Transfer." He didn't yell, didn't question. He just sat there, his brow furrowed like his brain was desperately searching through corrupted footage of the last 24 hours. He closed his eyes, and the broken fragments of memory began flashing back, burned like overexposed film. A glass of whiskey, laughter, dim yellow lights, a hand on his shoulder, a paper, a pen, the nod, barely conscious. He had signed. But why he hadn't agreed? He wasn't even sober. Ethan retraced it all in his mind, the phone call last night, the gentle persistence, the text from an old friend, the strange bar, the unfamiliar faces, the off taste of the drink. He didn't remember when he got drunk, only that he didn't feel the need to guard himself, because he thought it was just a night with the guys. But that night was the night he was erased from the company he built from nothing. Ethan put the receiver down. He didn't call back, didn't scream, didn't explain. He just sat there, for how long he didn't know. No rage, no fear, only silence, the kind of silence that follows absolute loss. And in that blankness, he realized what happened last night wasn't an accident. It was a design. Ethan didn't go back to the office. He didn't speak to the press, didn't post anything online, no denials, no justifications, because to him what was taken was a position not his worth. Within 48 hours of that fateful phone call, he packed up his things and left his old apartment. He cut all financial ties to the company, even the joint accounts. He rented a tiny room, barely 22 square meters, thin walls, worn-out floor, but the light was decent and there was one working power outlet. His only remaining asset was an old laptop stored in a cardboard box. He didn't recover old files, didn't log into old accounts. Instead, he created a completely clean environment. No one knew what Ethan was working on, except for one person. His former assistant, a quiet kid who used to help on side projects, showed up at the door unannounced. "I don't know how much I can help, but I don't want you to start over alone." Ethan looked at him, his voice hoarse, blunt. "I don't need anyone to follow me. I don't even know where I'm going." The kid didn't flinch. He just said gently, "Then let me walk behind you. In case you stop, someone should be there to push you forward." Ethan didn't respond, but he didn't send him away either. Because deep down, a small part of him had already said yes. He had no intention of recreating what was lost. He wanted to rebuild from the ground up. For 3 months, Ethan did only one thing. He took apart the codebase he once built. And what he found was clear. Most of what Jason now controlled was still running on a system that Ethan had written from scratch. Jason could buy lawyers, claim titles, sign deals. But only Ethan knew how that system breathed and how to write something better. He didn't raise funds, didn't make statements, didn't ask anyone to take his side. He just wrote, by day back-end architecture, by night research into the latest APIs, especially in behavioral analytics and deep learning. He wasn't looking for applause. Only one thing mattered. A product only he could envision, and only he could build. After 6 months, he had his first working prototype. Minimalist UI, double the processing speed of the old platform. Self-learning AI that adapted to user interaction. A level of technology Jason's system had never touched. He named it Fragment, because it was made from every broken piece he once lost, and this time there were no cracks. Ethan didn't sell it, didn't announce it. He sent the demo to exactly 3 people. An R&D director from a multinational tech firm, a venture fund he once turned down 2 years ago, and a man who had tried to buy the old company but was rejected by Jason for not offering enough. 3 people, 3 puzzle pieces, and a message with no emotion. This is a new product, not copied, not inherited. If you still care about the future of this industry, test it before we talk. Ethan's reconstruction project, a platform called Fragment, unexpectedly became the core pillar in one of the world's leading tech ecosystems. No advertising, no PR campaigns, just raw performance, unmatched stability, and adaptive learning that forced the entire industry to take notice. Within just 8 months, Fragment topped the global rankings for user behavior analytics platforms. And right at that moment, a discreet proposal arrived through a third-party broker. A local tech company is looking to sell urgently. Founding team dissolved. Confidential negotiation requested. Asking price 60% below original valuation. Ethan quietly opened the file. The company's name, it was his old company. The listed seller, Jason. Without a second thought, Ethan agreed. He bought it outright for less than half of what he had once invested as its original founder. The handover took place on the ground floor of an old building. No flowers, no press, no VIP room. Ethan walked in. Jason was already seated, arms wrapped tightly around a faded silver suitcase. No more sharp gaze, no more confident posture. Just a man trying to sit up straight, masking failure with a crooked smile. When the paperwork was done, Ethan stood. He looked at Jason for a long moment, then quietly said, "Once you took everything from me, today, I'm not taking anything from you, because you dropped it all long before I got here." Jason didn't respond. He simply bowed his head, dragged his suitcase, and left the lobby in silence. No applause, no cameras. Only the sound of suitcase wheels rolling across cold stone floors, echoing beneath the dim, withered yellow light. Ethan turned away and never looked back. Ethan didn't live for revenge. He lived so that no one else would ever have to feel the betrayal he once endured. He didn't rebuild to reclaim his reputation. He rebuilt to prove one thing. The most valuable thing isn't power, it's ability. And once you have real ability, no one can take that away. Ethan didn't need apologies, he didn't need applause. He only needed people to know he's still here. And this time, he doesn't need anyone by his side to feel grounded. Since the fall that year, every line of code he's written is no longer powered by pain. It runs on clarity. Clarity that he once lost everything and chose not to become a bitter version of the ones who betrayed him. Ethan doesn't need a stage, doesn't need spotlights, doesn't need his name called. He just needs to stand steady, quietly, but strong enough that no one can ignore his presence in the game anymore. Sometimes the cruelest thing Ethan ever experienced wasn't betrayal. It was realizing that for a long time he had given too much to the wrong person. But then he understood. Even that was a gift. Because it was that very fall that taught him how to rebuild from the bottom, this time without illusions, without dependence. Losing everything felt like the end. But in truth, it was the first time he had the chance to build something that no one could ever take away again. Not because it was stronger, but because the man who built it had known pain and still chose to stand back up.